husband's trying to go for custody of my son.
Yes.
And basically everything, I don't know how this is happening. That, like, my husband, we had a 3-year protection of abuse. He was found guilty from DHS and was not allowed to return to the home. Now, it ended in 2011. There's a criminal case pending on him for,
Let me just stop. Wait, I have to ask you something right now.
Huh?
1, how did you know to contact me? And 2, do you understand that I'm going to report this to law enforcement? What you say to me?
Yes, I do. I understand. The way I got to contact you was God, because I just went on because somebody told me that Judge Doherty or something, they said there was something going on with him, and I said, well, Judge Matthews is under his court or something. And then I started reading. I don't have the computer on my own. I came over to my neighbor, and about your 2 grandchildren and what's happening. It's like me all over again with my son.
Yes, well, actually, we've documented Judge Robert J. Matthews is literally the head of the snake for sadistic kidnap for profit. He deliberately gives children to the most abusive parent.
That's what he's doing right now. He told me I have 5 days to get my child enrolled in school, or he will put him in foster care or give him to his father. Mind you, his father failed DHS. Had the he's in September 17th, we go to court for a criminal case for him stalking my son and telling him he was going to burn the house down with me in it, and my son wouldn't go to school because of that. He was afraid. And also, he was calling my mother up, telling her she was going to burn the house down with me, and he's a violent man.
All right, let me get your full name, please, and your age.
Okay, I'm 43 years old.
Yes.
My name is Jennifer Cunningham.
Jennifer Cunningham. Okay.
Do you need my address?
I'm not going to publish your address, but actually tomorrow we're doing a 200 families that my data shows. When I say data, that's verified claims, like people calling up and then showing me their family court dockets and so on, where we verified that we have claims of personal injury caused by Philadelphia Family Court corruption, and we're doing this as a layperson referral to our Pennsylvania prosecutors, our Attorney General, and the candidates, to say that the people here of Philadelphia County, the working class, student, and impoverished people, we need the same top shelf investigations, audits, and indictments that our Pennsylvania prosecutors gave to the Middle District Kids for Cash that got those corrupt judges indicted and convicted, and the Penn State Gary Sandusky. So we're not complaining about our Pennsylvania prosecutors because they're really doing a good job. We're just saying that we haven't been able yet to gather the data to come in mass to say this is literally a public safety emergency problem. It's not just 1 or 2 of us that are disgruntled because a custody matter didn't go our way, that we actually have the evidence that these judges are on the take. They're literally making money sitting in conflict of interest of the billing contractors, the boards, and for Judge Robert Matthews, you can see it in the Pennsylvania Superior Court dockets. There are 38 of them where he...
I didn't even go into the docket yet. I don't even know how. I'm very computer illiterate. Like, I'm just going by everything that I have. I mean, I have...
Yeah, that's all you can report. That's all you can report. You just report your claims and what you know you experienced, right? And what you have proof of. So that's what I need. Now, I have your name. What is the child or children that are being harmed, endangered? What are their names?
My son's name is Brian, B-R-Y-A-N.
B-R-Y-A-N. And his last name? Cunningham. And don't say his date of birth. Say his name. I mean, say his age.
Say Brian Cunningham.
What is his age?
His age is 14.
And now the abusive father, right, with the criminal history, what is his name?
Albert Cunningham.
Albert Cunningham. Now, for me to be able to look up his dockets, can I please have his date of birth?
My son or his father?
No, the father, because we want to look up his criminal dockets. That's part of our evidence to the Pennsylvania prosecutors.
Okay, it's
1967. See, that's what, when I say that, I call it an administrative solution, that we use the free and low-cost publishing capabilities, not waiting for sponsorship dollars to pick up our story, that if we can verify it, then we post it to this citizens docket, I call it, on the internet. But we still have to be responsible and don't post like all our date of birth and the victims, so that our identities could be ripped off. But when somebody is really a criminal, then we want to gather their criminal dockets, which are searchable under the date of birth, and we say, look at this docket, look how this judge dropped the ball and endangered this child by knowing about this criminal docket. You know, we're able to, it's public records, we can find them. Okay. All right, so now, when did you first encounter family court? Was it through a domestic related, like a divorce issue? When did you guys go into custody?
No, it was when my son was, probably started 2006.
Okay.
We had a 3-year protection of abuse order, yet he kept taking me back to court, and I don't know how he got these things. I mean, he has visitation. My son refuses to go right now.
This is important. This is important. You had a 3-year protection of abuse order. Did that come out of 34 South 11th Street?
Yes.
All right. So, and that was back in 2006 that started that order of protection?
2006. The abuse really started in 2006, really bad with my son when my son was sick. About between 2006 and 2007.
Now, was the abuse towards you and your son, or I know this
mentally and physically abused towards us.
Towards the son.
The son and me.
Okay. Physical abuse.
My son is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yes, all of our children are, and parent alienation. So that's why we take not only the evidence of the willful child endangerment and the legal malpractice, where they actually violated. Pennsylvania has child abuse laws, you know. Our states have child abuse laws, and it says that.
They're not going by it.
Exactly. But that's our challenge. Our challenge is, how do we report that these officials who are supposed to be enforcing the laws are actually violating the laws? That's been our challenge, because we're lay people. We found out with my grandkids, the U.S. Attorney's Office told me, we didn't act on saving your grandkids because you didn't deliver the evidence that a crime had occurred. We can only act if the referral comes from an agency or a court. So that told us, what is our challenge? How does a lay person who's not an attorney report a crime? You know what I mean? It doesn't mean the crime didn't occur, but how can we get our evidence to you? You know?
Any of the abuse evidence, anything like that is not allowed. It's crazy. I'm like, but
now, when you, listen, who was the judge that gave you the order of protection?
For the 3-year order of protection, that was, let me see, final protection of abuse. Actually, because it was 3.
Yeah, see, we're connecting the relationships and actually showing, especially Senior Judge Robert Matthews, where there are private attorneys that have judicial aspirations, like they want to go to municipal court, they want to be judges and everything, and they literally are under his thumb, scared to death of him, to enforce his child abuse last order and willful reckless child endangerment. And we show how they later on won the election and got the Bar Association endorsement. So we're showing the political agenda. We have witness testimony on Tracy Slaughter, where Judge Robert J. Matthews didn't only destroy her and her family for the abusive father, but he came to her job where she was a server at a restaurant in the evening, and he came to her job with the husband's attorney, that he had ordered her to pay the husband's attorney $2,000, and sat at her table, her station, and demanded that she serve him while he jeered about the expensive Mercedes-Benz that the attorney was driving. So we're proving that he's not just acting criminally in his judicial capacity, that he's mentally ill and sadistic. He's crazy, you know?
He is. He actually told me, I have no money. I have nothing. I sold every piece of gold I had. He is actually doing whatever, like going along with Albert's lawyer.
promised Judge Robert J. Matthews when I tried to save my grandchildren. But see, what I did, this is what I learned. I learned the most important thing was to sue them in the federal court first. When you sue them in the federal court, you can't really get any money from a judge, but you get it on record that you're a federal crime victim and you qualify for what the United States Department of Justice says constitutes somebody who's a victim of official corruption, fraud, and civil rights. So by the time I moved to try to save my grandchildren from the abusive father and his girlfriend, which was all the components were there. He was in jail most of his life. He was on drugs. It was the most abusive situation. They were reporting abuse during the visits and everything. So when I filed into court, I filed into the federal court suing him for willful reckless child endangerment, but I also filed into the state court my notice to the Pennsylvania Judicial Disciplinary Committee, saying that we want to invoke our right to have another judge who hasn't shown so much prejudice deal with our domestic relations matters while you investigate him on a 3-day tribunal, which is all of this is like, we shouldn't have to become research case law and all this crap to find out how to protect our family. Right? So, but
I don't know. I'm trying. I need help. I don't know how to fight him. I don't know what to do.
The only thing that I'm learning, right, is what's happening, what we're doing now. Speaking in a voice of similarly situated, say, look, I'm not somebody who just things didn't go my way, that's complaining, disgruntled. I'm going to point out to you all the other complaints, not just you calling up like the other people that have called up, but I found out that going on the internet, this is how I found out about the collaborative powers of the internet technologies, the free databases. There's something called Courthouse Forum that's run by the American Bar Association, and they actually allow litigants to provide surveys of how a judge performed based on their criteria, how they mark a judge. And by me searching his name in Google, and it'll come up now, he had D- ratings on the American Bar Association surveys for even being knowledgeable about law, professional courtesy, starting on time, and he's just like, he's failing, right? And you'll see the horror stories that other litigants are posting up there. So that's just one piece of evidence that we post. We say, okay, we're not just going to leave it here at the Courthouse Forum. We're going to take it and we're going to put it in our database. We're going to put it in what's publicly available on this case study for all the complaints about this one particular judge. And as I promised him in front of a U.S. Marshal, but the U.S. Marshals had to come and get me. When I defied his order, when I was in contempt, it was the U.S. Marshal. He asked for me to be locked up for 30 days.
Well, you know what? My husband, he broke the order last month, and you know what the judge told me?
What?
When I tried to bring that up in court?
What?
Well, we're not starting from today, the order. Hell, I have a written document that states that if he does anything.
But listen, that's what we're finding it with this. All of this is like, we found out that when they control their docket, like when he reads the history of the case at the beginning of the session or whatever, it's never what really happened. It's manipulated. It's censored. He has literally denied receiving stamped court filings. And so what is the proof? He lied to the U.S. Department of Justice. How can you say that we didn't file this in and that in? Proof of service. He's actually called up an absent litigant. My son, he wasn't even in court, didn't have an attorney, called him up on the court from his phone and told his court reporter, Tiffany, this is off the record. How do you want me to handle this? This is how, it's beyond circus court. It's a public safety emergency when children are literally handed over to their abusers while he gloats about it. And
my son has Asperger's syndrome. He's autistic.
Son is
autistic. He has
autistic.
anxiety, panic attack disorder.
Yep.
Depression. It took years of therapy. When I tell you years, he's been in Horsham partial hospitalization, Einstein Crisis Center. We actually left the city left everything and everybody behind and ran up to the mountains to get away from him. But then I had no money, nothing.
But listen, let me tell you, Judge Robert Matthews' modus operandi, and this is not from an emotional point of view. This is from the data. There's a case, Katie Lang, and she's right here in Philadelphia also. Her son, Judge Matthews will deliberately parlay your son's disability to maximize billing. He wants your son to be more and more injured through the abuse of his father.
Oh my God. You know what? That's true, because you know what he's doing? We had to all have psychological evaluation. Now, my husband made this big deal about it, cost $600 for the one he wanted. So that was cut out. We just went through the psychological evaluation. My lawyer told me that mine came back fine. They're saying Brian's looked coached. So Brian, all my son is tell the truth. I don't have to coach him. He's been through it all. He's been through therapy.
I'm telling you.
Albert's didn't come out so good.
I'm telling you, we got Katie Lang, and listen, Katie Lang, Helen Ross, you got to follow the money. Their children already needed medical services and help, but Judge Robert J. Matthews signed off and gave the abusive father access to get to the child to abuse them sexually for Katie Lang in the hospital, and for Helen Ross signed off to make her leave to make her bring the child out of Delaware, a Wilmington, Delaware hospital where she was getting all the help she needed, because so that she could go to Children's Hospital, threatened to arrest the grandmother. Because why? He's sitting on the board of directors and gets a kickback for these services. The more injured your child gets, he does the order about where they can get the services and what medications and pharmaceutical companies that he gets a kickback from. That's why it's in his best interest to make sure your son is disabled and eventually wrongfully killed. And the U.S. economy fraud of that is your son, if he's blessed to be able to survive physically, ends up on the already overburdened Social Security disability rolls, still doesn't have the benefit of his money because the abusive person will be in his life as the representative payee. So this is the public safety emergency in it, and where your pieces of data, which you're reporting right now, they're going to verify that you are one more victim of a specific corrupt judge who our prosecutors, our federal prosecutors, and our Pennsylvania prosecutors can now go after, like they did Civarella in the Middle District when the children were being sold into the juvenile facilities, right? And got those convictions. So that's why I need to know as much as I can. When them prosecutors come in, they're not going to come and talk to us from an emotional point of view. They're going to be looking at those dockets. They're going to be like, wait a minute, this law was broke. The Pennsylvania child abuse laws say that anybody officially positioned, a coroner, a social worker, a nurse, a physician, a judge, a court employee who has knowledge of child abuse, it's been said, that does not report it, must suffer criminal and disciplinary penalties. Do you understand? The victim is not responsible under the law for reporting a child abuse. The officially positioned person is. So these are one of the RICO, racketeering influence, corrupt organization charges that we're bringing with the evidence. You know, you had a racketeering reason. You weren't just negligent. You just didn't drop the ball. You weren't incompetent. You did this over and over again as a modus operandi to embezzle funding meant for the preservation of families, and you used it in your domestic relations matters. I told him on March 9th, I said, at that time it was 20 families. Now we have 200 families. I said, Judge Matthews, on 2010, I said, on behalf of the 20 families, and for him, that we have proof whose lives you have destroyed through domestic relations matters, we're going to see to it that you are disbarred, you and your family live out your final days in disgrace, and that you never utter the words in the best interest of the children again, or have anything to do with anybody's personal household finances. And I told him that in front of a U.S. Marshal.
Biopsychosocial evaluation from a licensed psychologist and psychiatrist, signed, dated, and stamped, and he threw this to the side.
Oh yeah, he destroys evidence in the best interest of children. Our June 8th filing, right? We're going into court on August 9th. And our June 8th filing is literally buried. And we have been there filing in person in the family court. And Mark Oliva, the deputized, the clerk of court, was given orders. He would walk back to his office, we could see him, call Judge Matthews to even ask if he could accept the filing, right? He would read him part of it, right? And he would accept or he did. Now that right there is why the prosecutors, the Pennsylvania prosecutors, should investigate the whole court, because it's collusion. The clerks are afraid. The court employees are scared to death of Kevin M. Doherty, Margaret T. Murphy, Alice Beck Dubois, Judge Robert J. Matthews, because they are a dynasty, a judicial dynasty with an incestuous relationship with our city's controller. They're tied into the money. You understand? And lawyers, family court lawyers, no matter how well-intentioned your lawyer is, they are afraid for their bread and butter, because all it takes is a word from Judge Robert J. Matthews and they will not work again. We have been...
What? This is true. You know what happened when we went to court the other day? She told me I can bring, she had subpoenaed my mother and another neighbor that had seen the abuse. And she told me that morning, I don't need them. That it's...
Yep.
Then she never came into the room to talk to me before we even went in. She was talking to the lawyers and the judge. We went in, and it was like she had no say in anything. She just sat there, and I was like, what is this? And I was bothered with all this crazy stuff.
Yeah, we have been, and you'll see that when you go to Courthouse Forum about the attorneys talking about how he has his favorites. And we've been into his courtroom, and two attorneys waiting to go, and two attorneys were standing behind us arguing. They were saying, well, not arguing, they were discussing. They were saying, you know, we don't stand a chance. If we could work this out amongst ourselves, we don't even have to go before Matthews. They're scared to death of him. You know, and let me tell you about Teresa Kennedy. It's not just custody. It's not just children. Teresa Kennedy is a middle-aged woman who was divorcing her. It's in domestic relations matters where he tries to sap everybody dry for money and every contractor. She was suing her husband for alimony or whatever, and she was proving his intrinsic fraud, Judge Robert J. Matthews' intrinsic fraud of the divorce case. She had to go to the hospital, was diagnosed with cancer. There was a hearing with her divorce case. It was about a divorce case. It wasn't custody. It wasn't anything else. And the hospital faxed in a letter saying she's admitted here receiving chemo and she can't come to court today. Do you know that Judge Matthews arrested her for contempt, issued a bench warrant and arrested her? Not only did he arrest her, he put $250,000 bail on her.
Oh my God.
A grandmother.
When my husband was arrested, you know he paid?
What?
$12.
I want to know the name of your husband's attorney.
Oh, I'll give you that. He is a rotten, I've never seen anything like it. His name is P. Sanity.
Wait, spell his first name is what?
Michael.
Michael?
P.
Yes.
Sanity. Senerty. Esquire. I have his attorney ID number.
I don't need that because I get all that from the Bar Association, and you can look up an attorney. But another thing, that by providing the standard access for people to contact you using the internet technologies, phone or email, we have other attorneys that, because we post up our evidence against somebody, like in my case, Timothy Pacente, we had a Delaware County attorney come and say, yeah, he did the same thing in a case where he tried to give a 5-year-old to a father who had a criminal record so he doesn't have to pay child support, you know, and he tried to bully me. So we actually pool our evidence. So again, our strength comes in our claims, and we actually have jurisdictional related claims. We have one primary defendant here, and we would be the plaintiffs as a group of plaintiffs. You see what I mean? So, but right now,
all my friends said I should go with all I have, because they're even saying this is insane. You're a great mother. You have done nothing wrong, and they're going to take him from you. That I should go to, like, the news.
Now, what is your attorney's name so we can see what they're holding over her head?
Okay, you know what? I just got, believe it or not, because it's I get her for free.
Okay, all right.
Her 2 days before the court date. Let me pull this. Let me get her name 1 second.
Yeah, see, this is how we connect. You know the president judge, the existing databases, the Philadelphia.gov website, the courts now are fully electronic, so we could see their existing databases, property and so on. Well, the president judge maintains the Supreme Court disbarred and suspended attorneys list, and sometimes we take the names of attorneys, right, and we punch them in, we plug them in to try to see if they're related to someone else, or see if they got suspended, or see if they were disbarred, or if they're just returning, they just got reinstated because they were suspended for not following up with their continued learning, education, and their credentials. So,
okay,
yeah.
Her name is Maria Testa, Testa.
Yeah, so that's what, see, Judge Matthews and the court, they hold that over attorneys. Like if they know that they have anything, that it's their bread and butter, and they just start, they have all the costs to say in office and overhead, and they can't afford to like miss a paycheck. You know what I mean? So they put a lot of pressure on them. All right, Maria Tessa.
I mean, I would like you to see all my paperwork.
Can you fax me? I would love to see the divorce. Well, I want to see anything that's
I don't even have a divorce. I've been trying to get a divorce. He keeps lying, saying, "Oh, it's in the mail." Still haven't gotten.
Yeah, but I want to see that order of protection, right? To see, well, there's a judge that signed that order of protection that they're violating that, right? That's going to be a different case number. Then I want to see something with the case caption on it where Judge Matthews is sitting on. What that case caption looks like.
Okay, there is so many. I mean, you won't believe this has been going on. I've been fighting for my son for years. And now it's just come to a boil where everything I don't understand. He has to feel DHS and not be allowed, and it's proven he has abused me and my son, and yet they want to give him custody.
Yeah, but when you say they want to give him custody, has it been Judge Robert J. Matthews on this throughout, or is there another judge involved?
Judge Robert Matthews, and he hired him to represent Brian. Brian went one time and told him that he does not want to see his father. His father's abusive to him. He said.
Wait a minute. Wait, who'd they hire to represent Brian, your son?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Who did they hire? When you say they hired someone to represent...
Let me find the name of it. And he walks in and he goes, out of the blue, he goes, I feel that he should be in school within 5 days, and if he's not, custody should be given to the father.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You're not even working for my son.
Okay, let me give you another example, all right? Tracy Slaughter. Her 13-year-old daughter was killed by a drunken driver. She had a surviving little girl and a little boy. The little girl, 7, went into normal grieving of her older sister being dead. She was depressed and she refused to go to school. She missed like a week of school. The father that she was in the divorce or custody or whatever battle with about went to Judge Matthews and alleged educational neglect. Judge Matthews...
That's what they're doing with me, too. But the times my son wasn't in school, he was in Marshall Hospital.
Yeah, but when Judge Matthews said, yeah, give him to the father, so not only can the child be sent to school, but give him to the father and medicate the child. So the pharmaceutical company gives the child, the 7-year-old, psychotropic chemicals that now the mother witnesses the child shaking, clammy, irritable, and her nerves are stripped. And now she has a worsening disability, an injury. You see what I mean? Judge Matthews abuses children, disables them, and injures them to maximize billing of the places where he gets a kickback from. And that's what we're
doing that to me right now.
That was the same situation, a similar situation with that middle district, when our prosecutors stepped in and they got those 2 judges convicted because they were taking kickbacks to funnel these children to the billing contractors. So that's the evidence that's building that we have that I'm grateful for. We're showing a connection. Like, you, as a crime victim, you're like, and a mother who loves her child, all you see is like, damn, they're hurting my kid. They're hurting my kid. What are you, crazy? But if you understand the motive, right, and how you're fitting in to a systematic people-eating machine, right? So you could say they're trying to consume my son, and he's the factory-like facilitator. Judge Robert J. Matthews is the head of the snake that's sitting there to push my child to pharmaceutical companies, psychotropic chemicals. He'll be paralyzed and dead in no time. You see what I mean?
That's what he used to do with Brian. And I'm like, he ordered me and Cook to do that. We have to. And I'm like, I already have it. His evaluation from a psychiatrist. He says, we're not counting that.
Where does Brian, no, not Brian, where does Albert Cunningham live?
So sadly enough, he lives right around the corner from me. It's his mother's house. It's 2512 South Juniper Street.
Uh-huh.
And it's Philadelphia, PA 19148.
PA 19148. And that's his mother's house.
Yes.
Now, if something happens to you, like we always tell everybody, have somebody, like if you go to court, when's the next time you got to be in Judge Matthews' court? Like, who would be an emergency contact for you, like if you don't come out of court? He's always threatening to lock people up. He's always like, if you say one more thing, he'll ask you a question, and then if you start to answer it, he's like, I'm going to lock you up. Do you hear me? Right? So.
Yeah, I may be locked up in 5 days because Brian he will not go. I guess my sister.
All right, what is her name?
Denise Nocella, N-O-C. Well, you know what? Make my mom, because my mom doesn't work.
Okay.
That would be Eleanor.
She's an emergency contact for you, right?
Oh yeah, my mom would be an emergency contact. Eleanor. Simmeriglia. It's
Simiriglia. Simiriglia. This would not be published. Your family would not be published on the internet on the case study page. Like this audio between you and me, this is going to be published and my notes about it. But your family would be given to, like if I was like calling, I have called the U.S. Attorney's Office right down there on Chestnut Street, the Department of Justice and the federal court and the U.S. Marshals, and said, we believe foul play has gone on, and this is the people that can tell you what her circumstance is, her family member, when the last time is they heard from her, and so on. Because, Judge, we have evidence. Judge Robert that lied to a U.S. Marshal. He announced at the beginning of the court hearing on the 12th to a U.S. Marshal that my daughter, Lorraine Grinage, would be expedited released. And I told the U.S. Marshal, don't believe him. He said, no, go on home. Your daughter will probably beat you there. By the next day, I had talked to up the CFCF State Road, the jailers up there, and that's where we found out there are more good people than bad people, that they're under the law enforcement, they're under the gun of trying to keep their job but balance their morals. You know what I mean? And so they're trying to take care of their family, but they don't want to cause harm either, but they don't want to lose their job. And that's when I found out that the supervisor up there that ran the jail, he said, 1, nobody's going to hurt anybody in here. I'm not going to have it. And 2, I just want you to know there is no release being issued. We have orders from Judge Robert Matthews Chambers to, quote, hold indefinitely with no charges. There was no jacket, no charges. It's literally a false arrest. Yeah, it's literally a false arrest. That's what we say, false arrest. It doesn't exist anywhere. It never happened. You see what I mean? Right. So that's when that's when I started calling the U.S. Marshal's office at 601 Market Street. I kept calling them, and they said, no, you can't talk to the marshal. I said, no, the marshal that handled me and my daughter, I said, I need to let him know that Judge Matthews lied. And so sure enough, they patched me through to him in the field. And he said, I can't believe this. He said, I'm going to call his chambers immediately. And do you know, Yeah, but the whole time I was talking to them, I was posting it. I was like, and this is what the situation is 6:30. This is the situation at 7. It's been 30. And then finally at 1:05 when I talked live to the U.S. Marshal, at 2 o'clock I was hearing from my daughter she had been processed out.
Well, listen, my ride's here to take me to my mom's.
Okay.
Can I call you back?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay, Brian's lawyer. This is who Matthew.
Okay, but listen, check out www.HireLyrics.org because I'm going to publish the list of all the victims of corruption in Philadelphia Family Court tomorrow that went to the prosecutors. You'll see your name there. All right?
Okay.
All right. God bless. God bless you.
Want me to call you back?
You can call me back, but I'm just letting you know I'm going to use these notes that I have from you right now to report by tomorrow for the prosecutors. I'm going to publish everything I give to the prosecutors, every victim. So you're going to see how I report you, your name, your son's name as a victim, and my notes of this conversation. All right?
Perfect. Yes, definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you again.
All right.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.